Sometimes things just get lost in translation, like when you have a brilliant idea and then turn it into a music video, or like when you take that video and turn it into a short film, or when that short film becomes a full-on feature-length movie, or when you take that feature and make a video game out of it. That was pretty much the sequence of events behind the creation of Michael Jackson's Moonwalker, the Genesis beat-em-up that I found pretty amusing when I played it as a kid. But it's clearly so far removed from its original sources that it feels like the nonsense you get at the end of a game of telephone. When I went back and completed it as an adult, I found out that it wasn't nearly as much of a good time as I remembered. And now, it's a few years later, and it's clear that this game is still every bit the fever dream that it always was. But is it still lackluster? Or has it somehow gotten any better with age? We'll find out when I read complete Michael Jackson's Moonwalker. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Completionist New Game Plus, a show where I'm recompleting the first 120 games I featured on my channel not too long ago. And this one's a weird one, folks. There have been a ton of games based on movies before, but I can't stress this enough. Michael Jackson's Moonwalker is not a movie. Half of it is just a medley of his music videos and short films, and the other half is a loosely tied together narrative about MJ rescuing his preteen friends across several eras throughout time from the clutches of evil Joe Pesci by utilizing the powers of questionable physics and Motown magic. And back in 1988, we all just accepted it like it was no big deal. Probably because that's when Michael Jackson was arguably at the height of both his popularity and his eldritch powers. Moonwalker paints him as some kind of mysterious, mystical hero, which, to be honest, is kind of how fans saw him back then, both kids and adults. So all of that pop star prestige, combined with the fact that video games were all about the licensed properties at the time, made MJ's transition from real-life music superstar to video game protagonist seem way more natural than it already might seem today. Like, we're not gonna get a Bruno Mars action game from Platinum anytime soon. I mean, I'd play it, but it's not going down. The first version of the Moonwalker game that we got was an arcade isometric beat-em-up that actually featured some impressive visuals and cooperative gameplay. But that's not the version we're talking about today, folks. We're talking about the one that was made for consoles, which is worse than the arcade version in just about every single way. But that didn't matter to Kid Gerard because I was a Michael Jackson fanatic. It didn't matter what he was involved with, I was gonna love it regardless. Which did indeed include Moonwalker for the Genesis. But that wasn't how I felt about it when I completed it for the show the first time around. Sure, it was good for a laugh, but the gameplay got stale fast. It doesn't matter how bumpin' those MIDI renditions of MJ's hits are. Once the game stops being fun, it stops being fun. Which brings us to today, where I'm set to complete it all over again. Well, I guess I already did complete it again, since in order to do so, all you gotta do is beat the 5 worlds. And I already did that recently on Super Beard Bros. I guess all that's left is to sit down and try and make sense out of all of it for you guys. This might take a while. Michael Jackson's Moonwalker for the Sega Genesis is like a piece of chewing gum. Initially full of flavor, but eventually, once it's lost its zest, you're left standing there searching for a way to get rid of it. Which means that this game pretty much feels exactly how it did when I completed it the first time, albeit with a few differences here and there. But firstly, just in case I haven't made it clear enough already, understand that there's virtually no plot in this game, since it's based off of a movie with virtually no plot. That being said, it's pretty apparent that smooth criminal Mike is on a quest to rescue a bunch of little identical, toe-headed white girls from a bunch of semi-random bad guys. Now, I'm not gonna fault the Moonwalker game for its weird-ass premise. Just about every game of its era had a weird-ass premise. In fact, I think this strange little story about a 30-something musical prodigy rescuing pigtailed youngsters is one of the game's best elements, specifically because it's fucking nuts, and it only gets funnier to me the more I forgot about the actual movie it's drawing from. I guess what I'm saying is that I'm learning to lean into the batshit crazy on this one, and it helps. And there's still plenty of batshit crazy to go around between the half-assed beat-em-up mechanics, the sparse platforming, and MJ's magic powers. No, for real, there's magic. How else do you explain the sparkles and the shooting stars and the terrifying transformation sequences? This dude's main attack looks gentle and enchanting, but it's actually an ever-expanding hitbox of insta-death that does just as much damage on frame 1 as it does on frame 15. And that doesn't even originate in the game. Mike was tossing dudes through walls in the Smooth Criminal video, so kudos to the accuracy. Mike's basic pixie dust attack can be aimed in a few directions and can even be whiff canceled at any time, so you're never really locked into it, making you just as broken as you'd want to be in a game like this. Michael can also pull off one of his patented spins to get enemies off of his back, but if you hold the spin for a bit, it'll end with the hat projectile. And of course, if you hold the spin down even longer, you'll initiate the dance party, which causes enemies to dance until they die. There's a different dance for each of the worlds in the game, and honestly, trying to see them all is one of the best motivators you can get for finishing this game, because each dance is perfectly animated. This right here never gets old. It's just a shame that all these cooler attacks drain your health, especially the Dance of Death, which requires half a health bar. I'd have performed them all way more if they didn't bring me closer to death. And then there's Mecha Michael, which is exactly what it sounds like. You're automatically transformed into him in one of the last levels of the game, complete with flight capability and laser arrays, just in case they want to be starting something. But it turns out that you can actually transform into Mecha Michael several other times throughout the game by rescuing a specific child first on each level. That'll cause a shooting star to appear, and if you catch it, you'll temporarily transform and roll out. I never knew which children were the secret magic kids, so I never did this. And in hindsight, that actually really bums me out, because occasionally getting to play as Mecha Mike would have nicely broken up the monotony of this gameplay. There's really not much else to this game beyond what I've already described. You fight bad guys, go on and find the kids, and maybe battle a wave of enemies or an underwhelming boss. There are no collectibles, no real puzzles, and no sense of progression. The combat has no depth like you'd find in a final fight. The platforming isn't anywhere near as satisfying as you'd find in something like Mario. And the searching is a far cry from the likes of Toe Jam and Earl. Some unlockable abilities would have done wonders for Moonwalker's fun factor, especially if they were based on other MJ videos. Imagine summoning the little plane from the Leave Me Alone video to blast enemies away, or summoning the rabbit from Speed Demon to back you up in combat, or clearing the screen with the help of your celestial brothers from the Can You Feel It video. Lay waste to them all, Jacksons. But no, it's the same old smooth criminal tossing pocket sand at people the whole time. And although the enemies change a bit from stage to stage, they're all dealt with in the same exact way. They either rush you down or shoot at you from afar. Yeah, you might hit the jump attack or duck every once in a while, but there's just level after level of this. Not to say that the levels themselves are unenjoyable. They're fine, I suppose. And as wacky as the source material for Moonwalker is, this game actually does a pretty impressive job of choosing the most interesting locales from the movie and inventing new ones to fill out the game's world. If it weren't for the choice to go off book a bit, we never would have gotten these zombies and would have been stuck fighting Mr. Big's henchmen in each and every stage. Ugh. The sprite work isn't anything to write home about. Plenty of stuff is certainly recognizable, but that doesn't keep it from being laughable. Like, what is that exactly that's carrying away those children? Is it a perfectly horizontal, low-flying shooting star? Or is it giant glowing jizz? You'd be the judge. Not to mention the transition screens between levels, which feature a hilariously animated portrait of our hero. The sound design, however, is as great as it's always been. Getting to hear authentic MJ tracks as you play helps to keep you going, even if there is no thriller in this game, despite the appearance of a graveyard level. Well, thriller appears in some versions, but I'll let you look that trivia up yourselves. What is important is that it was replaced by another Jackson track, specifically Another Part of Me, which has nothing to do with the undead or spooky stuff, and yet it still works. It's a testament to how good the music is. You can cut it up and squish it into MIDI and stick it into inappropriate stages, and it still jams. Doesn't matter if it's a city street, a spider-filled cave, or launch base zone. Whatever, you can make fun of Jacko for it, but good music is good music. However, good tunes still can't save this game from getting boring and frustrating after a certain point. And I think I've actually pinpointed where that point is. It's right around here. About halfway through the graveyard is where I just wanted out. And even though hanging with Brett and Chris during my whole playthrough really helped things stay lighthearted, it still eventually became a slog. Moonwalker isn't hard by any means, but it is stressful since you're always worried about having to start all the way back from the beginning if you lose all your lives. And no one wants that. Thank God for those level select codes, because I don't know if I had it in me to make my way through the game once again once I got game overed. Oh, and one more thing. The final fight against Mr. Big can just go f moonwalk itself. It is without a doubt the worst part of the game. You're riding high off of the end game Mecha Michael sequence when you transform into a jet to chase down Joe Pesci for the climax. You've got to bring him down in a shootout, but it's not as easy as it sounds. You can't tell if you're moving, it's hard as hell to aim, and you can barely tell when you've been damaged. On top of all of that, it's easy to lose here, so your risk of having to replay the entire game is higher than ever in this fight. But at least when this battle is over, you can rest easy knowing that Moonwalker is completed. I didn't really expect my feelings on Moonwalker's staleness and weirdness to change since last time, since the game itself hasn't changed at all. But the impact of ennui from those last couple of levels was softened a bit since I was doing it with friends. And the fun I had witnessing how off the wall everything was enhanced by my not having to do it all alone. Moonwalker may be short and bitter, but it can become short and sweet if you've got the right folks playing by your side. Is he gonna do it? There it is. Michael, of course, doesn't have any new tricks or treats for players who complete Moonwalker. And considering how short the game is, I'm not that offended by it. Besides, the only bonus that would be satisfying at all would be some sort of explanation of where all these little blonde kids are coming from and what the hell they're riding away on, or fully playable bubbles. Either way, while I completed Michael Jackson's Moonwalker, there were 23 deaths, 5 worlds conquered, 119 kids rescued, 2.5 hours of total playtime, and 500,000 more signatures needed before Platinum Games takes us seriously about the Bruno Mars game. Sign it. Do your part. Michael Jackson's Moonwalker, I think, is a relic best left to the past. I think it's a fun game to play. I like the music, obviously, because of Michael Jackson. Everything else about it is bizarre. Saving the kids, fighting Robo Joe Pesci, turning into a fighter pilot ship. This is all stuff that comes from the Moonwalker lore and film / musical that's out there. But at the end of the day, that doesn't save this game. This game is still not as great as it could be. So, with that in mind, guys, I still give this game my completionist rating of look at it.
Look at it.
That's all the time we have today, guys, so please, as always, let me know what you think about today's episode somewhere on the internet. If you like the show, do me a favor, hit that like button, leave a comment down below about what games you want to see next here on the Completionist New Game Plus. Speaking of which, did you know that I stream myself recompleting these games on twitch.tv/thecompletionist? I stream about 2 to 3 times a week, and they're generally late night streams into long hours, so if you've got, 4 to 8 hours to spare in a late evening, I'm usually on Twitch completing the games that I do. So come check me out. Guys, I've been Gerard the Completionist, and I'll see you next week for another brand new episode. Bye!